There is only one problem in this universe. Many people say that, we have an impending war. That's, you see, there are all sorts of manipulations and the such. That's, there is a pandemic on the loose. But apparently, no one is still apparently remembering anything about the pandemic. And well, now that the so called looming war is, becoming ever so important, well, I have to remind people one thing. There are wars all over the world. It's just that they never were too close to you. Now that this war is, not far away from the center of Europe, well, point is, people suddenly became more, invested into it. When there were wars in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and such, no one seemed to be so interested in them. But now suddenly everyone is obsessed with trying to, fight against one side, but apparently not the other side. See, there is only one problem in this world, and that problem is not war. That only problem is ignorance. Because when you are an ignorant, you are literally screaming, I am a mold me into whatever you want, because I will simply comply. That is the point with all ignorance. They don't care about who and what they are, they just live and, well, they just live by the karma that was put on their shoulders. See, when you have a physical body, when you are born in this world, you have your own karma from previous lives. Obviously, you have karma from your parents and their ancestral lines, and, well, all that karma will have a certain influence upon you. If you allow it to influence you, well, most likely you're gonna become more and more ignorant. And, well, in a sick society, if you're an ignorant, well, most likely you're also gonna get an award. The award is usually that you'll be the last one to die, because, well, see, ignorance are important because they are the first pieces that can be manipulated. They are the easiest to mold because they react to literally anything, cause a little panic, and it's easy to see who the ignorants are because they don't care to do anything to improve their lives, and especially the lives of others, and they're always too preoccupied doing nothing and wasting their time and, believing that they will live forever. And they waste their time believing that they will live forever. When it comes to ignorance, the problem is through ignorance, you're becoming molded by your karma, by how your parents thought, by how your ancestors thought. See, you probably never met your grandparents, but since they are part of your parents' ancestral lines, well, your parents also inherited their karma. Most likely them not being capable of transcending that karma, well, now it is simply your turn. Perhaps you don't know how your grandparents looked like, and, well, you don't know what nationality they had, what skin color they had. That is simply irrelevant. But their behavioral karma, their patterns and the such, they are still within you. At least a part of them, because each child, based on their own karma, will be influenced by more or less aspects of their ancestors. Probably you're not a drunkard as, I don't know, your grandfather may have been, but, well, you still have a bit of their genetical code, and most likely, even if it is not represented by, primary genes, right? Genes that simply shape the way you look, right? They didn't happen to win, and, well, they don't represent you directly, but they are still in your DNA, well, they are still within you. Same is with the karma, right? Maybe you're not influenced by some self-destructive behaviors of your ancestors, but they are still there. And at the right time, if you have a certain vibration, well, they will kick in, slowly and surely, because they are just like inactive processes, waiting to be turned on by, let's call it a trigger. See, ignorance creates separation, because people who are ignorant will instantly identify with something. They don't care about this, they don't care about that, they don't care about who they are, but they will simply identify with something sooner or later. They will identify with their body, they will identify with a creed, because, well, if you don't support something that truly represents you, you will easily fall for something that represents others. That is the fate of a lot of people. They live other people's lives, because if one comes and says, this is my God, and you simply follow that God, Well, you're living someone else's life because that God is not your God. Someone else came and said, this is my God, right? And when you have someone who says, this is my God, someone else who says, this is my God, well, most likely you're on the brink of a war anyways. Because two diverging opinions are never far away from a war. And, well, humanity most likely remembers how many wars there have been on, religious, premises, right? Someone believes in a certain god, someone believes in another god, and, well, there's a war, right? A king married a beautiful woman, but another king wanted that woman. Well, guess what? There has been a war, most likely. So separation occurs when different people believe in different opinions. Well, difference of opinion is always a good thing, but if one becomes too identified with it, well, war is never far away. Obviously, war doesn't have to necessarily be physical, or doesn't have to necessarily be, uh, you know, with military weaponry, but the point is a war is still a war. Now the point is separation creates this idea of loneliness, because ultimately when you are identified with an opinion, you automatically reject everything else. If an opinion becomes your creed, well, that creed becomes more important than even creation itself. So the point is, when you are truly identified with a thing, with something, everything else is kind of a problem. Everything else is something that you kind of dislike and disregard. Everything else kind of is the enemy. When you see the enemy, that is already a war. All wars start in one's mind, because in the mind, all wars have their seeds planted, right? All wars stem from the mind, because, well, the mind is something that most people don't know, because that's what ignorance is. You don't know anything about you. When you don't know anything about your mind, well, that kind of is a problem, because you see, the mind can simply fool you in all possible ways, and the mind can easily convince you that someone who believes in something different than you is the enemy. When something is the enemy, well, you're again not far away from a war. But when so many other people believe in things that you don't believe in, well, there will be sooner or later a sense of loneliness. Loneliness brings with it a sense of hopelessness. A sick society's purpose is to make you feel, well, hopeless. Because technically, a sick society's purpose is to try to convince you through manipulation that you're the one needing it. See, a society needs the people because it is made by people. But the point is, a sick society thinks that people needs it. That's how narcissism works. Narcissism is all about feeling that you are the center of the world. Even if you are not, you must convince people that you are, right? So that whenever there's a problem, you are the one that other people come to. Even if you can't give them a true solution, at least you're gonna strip them of some of their attention. And in your mind, you'll always call them fools and stupid enough because they're doing that. Because ultimately, narcissists have a bad opinion about themselves. It's just that they learn to fake that, they're very confident and the such. That's why you will see them prancing around with pseudo-heroic deeds. Or how I call them, pseudo-heroinic deeds, because they all feel like, they're on heroin. But most times it's easy to see how easy they are fooling around and, how fake they are. But at least they're still trying. Lessons for some people to learn. When you have ignorance, well, ignorance means not learning anything about you. So most likely you will just live other people's lives. This causes misery within you, because you're not using your potential. You're feeling abandoned, even more than your parents most likely ignored you. When you feel abandoned again, you feel hopeless. When you feel hopeless, you want even more separation, because that's how the mind impulses go. When there are things that you don't like, you want a separation. That's how you are being ruled. You're constantly being caused pain by society and suffering through ignorance of other people, starting with your parents, school, work, environment and the such. And when that happens, you get more and more inflicted with pain. The more inflicted with pain you get, well, that is kind of a problem, because you will want even more separation. You will want like-minded people who feel like you, who have been through things like you. And then you will want even more separation because you can't stand people who haven't gone through your own experience. Identifying with your own experience is a bad thing, because again, it leads to ignorance. And ignorance, again, leads to not knowing things about you, ignoring possibilities, ignoring change, because ignorance means ignoring change. Change is the only constant in this universe. Ignoring change means that, well, you don't want to evolve anymore. When you don't want to evolve anymore, that's kind of the end of you. That causes even more frustration. Frustration leads to hopelessness. Hopelessness leads to loneliness. Loneliness leads to anger. Anger leads to separation. And anger plus separation obviously leads to a war. Because you'll always see the others as apparently having more than you have. Just because you're miserable and others are not, well, you don't know if underneath their appearance, those other people aren't as well miserable. All this being said, hopefully you liked this video. Hopefully this video was introspective enough. You are appreciated. Take care. Ferenc Bor signing out.